So continuing with the illustrations of the Romantic fashion, this is still broadly understood Regency period. So this is the period before Victoria's accession, although this is not exactly the time when the future King George IV ruled as Prince Regent, but rather his reign. It was, as you remember, from 1820 to 1830, and then the reign of his brother William IV from 1830 till 1837. This is the period of great splendor of the royal court, extravagant parties, beautiful ladies. This is the time when the royals entertained royally. It's not only the case of Britain, although you have some new arrivals to the court, like the Duchess of Kent, the mother of Queen Victoria, and here we have a portrait of her wearing splendid costume in a romantic style. So note the hat, note the hairstyle, the sausage curls, note the use of jewellery, so a lot of jewellery. She was a royal woman, so definitely being a duchess. Speaking of portraiture, there is also a very interesting collection of portraits of fashionable, mostly very young ladies from Bavaria. Before the unification of Germany, this was a separate kingdom, and the king of Bavaria, King Ludwig, had a hobby. So whenever he met a pretty girl, like she was one of the aristocratic ladies or a daughter of some courtier, he would order her portrait to be made. And if you ever visit Munich in Germany, there is a wonderful summer residence called Nymphenburg near the city of Munich, and in the palace of Nymphenburg you can find the entire room packed full with these portraits. They are mostly from the 1820s till the middle of the 19th century. This is called the Schönheitsgalerie, the Gallery of Beauties, and here I have a few. We will see a few portraits of these ladies. So here we have. It's really like those early portraits from the 20s, from the 30s. They are really like the Romantic fashion at its best. It's not stupid. It's not silly. It's just charming and imaginative and very very girlish. So here we have one of those ladies wearing what seems to be a full dress with short full sleeves and the decorative oversleeves I mentioned already. So the kind of semi-transparent long oversleeves in the shape of the leg of mutton. She is, from what we can judge, young and unmarried, so she's not wearing a lot of jewellery, although you may notice this decorative gold buckle on her waist. But she's wearing live flowers as decorations. But if you look at the hairstyle, very elaborate. She is definitely a lady of taste and fashion. There are two more images from the Schönheitsgalerie in this set. So there is another lady from 1831. As you can see, the shape of the skirt of the dress is changing. So we have this very triangular bodice, but the fullness of the sleeves is already starting to descend, so the shoulders are visible and the puffs on the sleeves start slightly below the shoulders, not at the level of the shoulders but slightly below. So the shoulders themselves are rather narrower than before and the fullness starts before. This will be very typical, you'll see some more. What else is this lady wearing? A very interesting hair ornament, a jeweled hair band called a ferroniere. with this kind of jewel at the front. Another lady from this period, 1832. Again, you can see the shoulders visible in the décolletage and the sleeves starting slightly off the shoulders, and a very, very elaborate hairstyle with the sausage curls and the Apollo knot. The previous lady also had the Apollo knot, so this kind of very decorative hairstyle that was of course the indicator of a very high social status. The 30s are also the moment when the career of one of the principal Victorian time portraitists start, Franz Xaver Winterhalter. He also came from the German-speaking countries, and here we have an early portrait by Winterhalter. Remember him, you'll see a lot of portraits of Queen Victoria and other royal ladies slightly later, wearing again a fashionable dress of 1833 with the full sleeves starting off the shoulder, and a very elaborate hairstyle with the sausage curls and the Apollo knot. So this is really something that is very visible, and it's a very clear indicator of social status. But if we look at the fashion plates and the surviving specimens, it just continues. So here we have a day dress from the Victoria and Albert Museum, leg of mutton sleeves, a big hat, a flat white lace collar, a relatively short dress, a walking length dress, and the fashionable accessories, the parasol and the small handbag or reticule. Another fashion plate shows the same, very visible leg of mutton sleeves, so fullness at the top, narrower towards the wrist. So around 1829 or 1830, we really have a lot of that. However, as you can see, the interest in the hem decoration of skirts starts to gradually diminish. You sometimes see that in some fashion plates, sometimes you don't, and this will be the trend to last longer. However, the skirts themselves get steadily fuller and fuller, so you need more and more petticoats to achieve the desired shape. Here we have the evening dresses from 1829 in rich colors. As you can see, this kind of saffron yellow or kind of rich pink. Note the extremely elaborate hairstyle of the lady wearing the yellow dress. Of course, the fashion plates are just an ideal and a suggestion that if you wanted to invest time and money into displaying your wealth through fashion, this was the suggested way of doing that. But otherwise, the other ladies, you can see, she's wearing an evening dress, but with a very big decorative hat with lots of feathers. So the hats are very important, so important that you can actually wear them indoors in the evening. The next thing is quite interesting. It is a caricature ridiculing the extremities of romantic fashions. So what is made fun of? Of course, the enormous hat on a huge hairstyle worn by this lady, a very short skirt. It's full, but it's very short. Of course, as you can see on the fashion plates, it was never this short, but yes, the shortness of the skirt was noticed. Those very full, in this case, paneled sleeves and the flat collar. And one more thing that you can notice here is a gentleman accompanying the lady. We don't really have time today to talk about men's fashion of the Romantic period, but they follow the same principles. So the emphasis on this hourglass shape was not only a female thing. If you see the gentleman, of course it's a caricature view. You can see the emphasized shoulders and emphasized hips visible through the shape of the overcoat. With a small waist, and behind him there is another male figure with the leg of mutton sleeves. So of course in real life it was never this extreme, but it shows the trends. It really makes fun of the trends. What else? If we look at some portraits like this, portrait of an aristocratic lady with a doggy, painted by George Hayter, one of the court portraitists whose career continued into the early Victorian period as well. You can see that this dress is not that extreme, although the sleeves are panelled. And the hairstyle is quite interesting. It's not very elaborate. It has the central parting, the Madonna hairstyle, with the ringlets on both sides. So I would say this lady is really a trailblazer, because this looks, especially the hairstyle, like something that will be fashionable 5 or 10 years later in the early Victorian period. So yep, she is an influencer perhaps, or someone who is in front of the mainstream fashion. The mainstream fashion 1830 is still for very elaborate hairstyles, and here we have again evening dresses with very full sleeves, short but very full, usually worn with long gloves. So if you look at the dresses from the early 30s, they have those full skirts. The decoration of the skirts start to be more varied, so you might still have some hem decoration, but let's say the layering and the kind of over skirts are also becoming fashionable. And something that I mentioned already, which is very visible in fashion plates as well by that time, the fullness of the sleeve does not start at the level of the shoulders, but slightly below. So what we have is a rather distinctly triangular shape of the shoulders themselves, even more emphasized by the collars. Here we have a specimen of a day dress with this kind of decorative pelerine made from the same material, which creates a triangular shape of the shoulders, and the fullness of the sleeves starts below. So at this time the fullness is really the greatest around the elbow level, not above, not below. There is a small white collar for day dress, and the dress itself is relatively simple. I would say the most attractive element as far as fashion goes is the fullness of the skirt and the shape of the sleeves, with this triangular shape of the shoulders emphasized by this short pelerine. So if we look at the evening dresses, the short sleeves start off the shoulder, sometimes with a very low cut decolletage exposing a lot of skin, which many ladies might use to display a very elaborate and expensive necklaces. So that's one thing. For day dresses we have the hourglass figure, but the fullness of the sleeves is really gathered at the elbow rather than the shoulder. So these big flat pelerines or flat flounces, or sometimes even flat collars that emphasize the the triangular shape of the neck and shoulders are really visible. Sometimes it can be quite extreme. We have some fashion plates from 1832 and 1833. You can see that the bonnets get smaller, but the bodice is really extreme and very pronounced, and the shape of the sleeves is changing, and the skirts themselves are very full, although in these cases they are all short meaning walking length. So there we go, and that's really the situation that continues in the first half of the 30s, with the fullness of the leg of maton sleeves gradually descending. So eventually it will be moved lower and lower and lower, reaching the kind of inverted leg of maton shape, with the greatest fullness at the level of the wrist. So there will be a cuff and a very full sleeve, gradually getting narrower towards the shoulder. So the same, long sleeves for day wear, short sleeves for evening wear, and the decorations are still, but they are not so focused on the skirt. The most important thing about the skirt is its fullness. You might have other decorations rather than horizontal applications or embroidery, such as those curtain style overskirts, sometimes historically inspired. They were normally associated with the 18th century styles, and you have quite a lot of that. So big shawls are still there because they do not crush the sleeves. Otherwise you have the big mantles and other types of overcoat. This is the situation around the moment when Victoria comes to the throne. So the romantic fashion is still quite extreme and quite decorative. Especially the upper half of the figure is visible and subjected to seasonal changes. So we have decorative headwear and decorative hairstyles for evenings. We have a lot of historical inspiration in the sleeves and in the collars. We have those triangular bodices, gradually, increasingly being drawn to a point in the front, although the pointed bodice is the Victorian thing really that will be visible in the Victorian fashions. The skirts are just very full. They are full. They have the kind of dome shape that is very characteristic for this period, but they have less surface decoration than before. So a few last slides here show the fashions from 1836. In some fashion plates you also have gentlemen accompanying the ladies, so you can notice, hopefully even at this point, that men's fashion is simpler, with darker colors mostly, especially the coats. That nobody wears the suits made of the same fabric, like the trousers and the coat and the waistcoat made of the same fabric. This was not known in at least in the first half of the 19th century, but even longer really. That top hats, those very characteristic hard hats with very high crowns, are are gaining popularity, and this is really something that will continue well into the Victorian period, for almost entire Victorian period, as the standard male uniform. So there will be more emphasis on fashion and female clothes, or at least more seasonal changes. Here we have a portrait of Queen Victoria shortly after her coronation, and you can see that some elements of the fashionable dress are still here, like the triangular shape of the neck and shoulders, and some fullness at the lower part of the sleeves. Victoria was a young woman. She followed fashion, she liked parties, she liked dancing. However, she was aware that she didn't want to be associated with the extravagance and excessive spending of money associated with the royal court before. So you can see some sensible elements already arriving, like the apron used for fashion accessory, this embroidered black, probably silk or velvet maybe, apron used on the dress, and also a very sensible hairstyle with central parting and kind of loops of hair on two sides of Victoria's face. If you compare it, for example, with Queen Louise of Belgium, the second wife of Uncle Leopold, Victoria's favorite uncle, you can see that the older woman is still wearing the curled hair on top of her face. Victoria, well, we'll talk about Victoria next time, but she definitely wanted to look older than she was. She was only 18 when she came to the throne. She wanted to look responsible, she wanted to look mature, and she wanted to look like a new monarch. Something that would very often be called the middle class monarchy, as introduced by Victoria and the influence of the middle class. So just a few fashions from this transitional period. So 1838, as you can see, the extravagance of the Romanticism is gradually going away. However, the traditional shape associated with the female figure, so the hourglass shape with a very small waist and the rounded hips, here emphasized by the skirt, plus the rounded shoulders, this is something that will stay in fashion for decades because of one thing: the importance of traditional gender relations in Victorian society. So women, first of all, had to display their femininity rather than anything else, rather than their social position, than their wealth, than their status, sophistication, good taste, whatever. These were all positive features, but of course the focus of the whole culture, not only the fashion in the Victorian period, will be on gender roles and the traditional division of labor between genders in the Victorian society, mostly expressed through, let's say, the fashions and customs of the wealthy middle class rather than the aristocracy. The Biedermeier and the Romantic period was civilian enough, but this time it will even get more pronounced and more connected with the city dwellers and the middle class. So that's basically it for today. Think of some films for the Romantic period, and when we meet live, we'll discuss these films. We'll discuss the fashions from the neoclassical period and the Romantic period together. So thank you. Goodbye.